da 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 da. It's always so lovely to come back here, and I feel so honored, really, because the person who actually guided me and brought me in this world of spirituality is Guruji, my mentor, who's sitting right there. So it's so amazing also that as a young girl, when I passed out from my mass communication course, one of the persons I got to learn with and work with is Dr. Vandana Shiva, where I learned about biodiversity, monocultures of mind. So I think I'm in a very privileged place, standing in front of all of you. And to learn the very basis of what makes us, whether it's about seed, whether it's about divinity, what leads to creativity, what leads to divinity, these are answers these are questions that I started exploring, looking for answers to, through these wonderful people who have invited me here. And of course, Didi, who I love tremendously, and I've spent amazing times with her in Argentina when I was working as a journalist. Thank you so much for having me over. You know, this topic, before I say anything else, I want to say one thing. You cannot bribe nature. Nature is beyond bribe. Somebody talked about corruption here, and I wish people realize that nature cannot be bribed. And what exactly is nature? Do we realize that we don't inherit the earth from our ancestors, but we are borrowing it from our children's future? And if we realize that, I think the way we treated nature would be so different. You know, it's sad, and I don't want to make it political at all, but I think human interventions, political and social, are needed to impact policy that govern us, that decide our pricing, that decides our resource allocation. And I think it's important to go there. It's really sad we've been talking about Uttarakhand. Of course, Vandana Di comes from Uttarakhand, and I've had the pleasure of staying in her house in Dehradun. Look at this state which is being called, whatever tragedy that happened is being called a tsunami. But to think that it was man-made, that this place was plundered and ravaged because of unregulated, unchecked, unsafe plans of development, it is such a travesty of what we believe is democracy, and the right and the duty of our politicians to protect us. It is indeed sad that this went on, and if I tell you the figures, more than 11,600 people were found missing. That's a huge number. 147 bridges washed away. There was destruction of road in 800 places. And all the televisions focused on was which politician is going there, taking which helicopter, and it became a photo op opportunity for a political class. That, I'm afraid, is a huge shame and disgraceful. Somewhere the common man, the common woman, the last man there has to be the celebrated one, has to be the person around which the policies have to be geared towards. I would also like to point out and actually choose this opportunity to pay not just obeisance, but also to remember a Swami Nigamanand. Have you heard of him? Swami Nigamanand, only 34 years of age, died last year, protesting against illegal quarrying in the same area. No press covered him. And this young Swami gave up his life, and I think it's important that we remember him, especially at this forum. It's sad that after all the fasting that he did, and all the documents that were produced against the illegal quarrying projects that were going on the riverbed of these ecologically fragile areas of Uttarakhand, no notice or heed was given to this man who really laid down his life. Some other very interesting facts. You know, now two ministers, as Vandana ji just pointed out, have gone because they were not giving clearances. Two relatively better ministers and actually wonderful one man and one woman who were there. Now we have a present minister there in the same place. he has a very interesting, he has two very interesting portfolios. And we'll talk about conflict of interest here. He has oil and petroleum on one hand, and he has environment on the other. Now think about it. Recently, he's given clearance to a $40 billion project in Arunachal Pradesh for POSCO, which is going to have long-reaching implications. And he feels that there is nothing wrong with this. He feels it's important to have economic growth, that such investments must be made. Look at another figure. According to World Bank, and these are not my figures, this is the understanding our minister has. Look at the other figure. $80 billion are being wasted annually in India because of environmental degradation. And that is something that the minister in concern does not know of. And that makes you wonder, because if he feels that on this planet there is space available for wildlife, for the forest, and human life, and when he can back projects worth $100 billion, how come he not know that $80 billion are wasted through environment degradation? This is 5% of a GDP. So while very smart ALEC arguments are made in favor of good economic growth, economic policies, for wealth creation, I wonder why these very important figures are not talked about when we talked about sustainable development. One can't happen at the cost of the other. These are not mutually exclusive processes, and I wish somebody understood that. Now, this report that came out by the World Bank itself, this is what I'm quoting, that it analyzes the physical and monetary losses of environmental health and natural resources. If we focus on particle pollution from the burning of fossil fuels, which has serious health consequences, it amounts to 3% of our GDP. Now, again, that's a huge number, which nobody bothers to look at. Now, let's see what this causes. Do you know that about 23% of child mortality in this country could be attributed to environmental degradation? So while, this is huge, really. So while we look at figures economically, and we get lost in facts and figures, can you see the huge toll that it takes on human lives, quality of life, our children, our environment? And it's sad that in a country like ours, which is a sovereign for the people, for the commons, the minerals, the mines, the forests, water, even 2G, is just being auctioned off. Why? Just for few people's greed. And I would like to make a further point from here. I know the voice of spirituality is that of gentleness, also of silence in many times, but to save our earth, to save our people, to save our resources, to seize our tomorrow, hand it back to our children who deserve it, and not just ours, but everybody's children, I think we must make a human intervention. We must make a social intervention. We must make a huge political intervention. Just like the Bishnois of yesteryears and even today, just like all the women involved with the Chipko movement, we, regular people from all parts of the world, must get together and put pressure on our respective legislators, authorities, and seek answers and engage with politics. It is, after all, politics that decides policy, that decides how pricing will be done, that decides where our minerals, our mines, our coal, our fuel will go, and what kind of new resources of fuel that we really want to look at. These are very important questions. We feel politics is for someone else. No, it affects us. It affects the quality of air I breathe, on the kind of school my child goes to, on the kind of house I live in, on the road outside, on the little sewer there. It affects every aspect of our lives. So I would make a gentle appeal to all of you to start off with a social intervention where you put pressure, gently but firmly, being informed citizens. Talk more and more about organic farming. Look at this. I consider Ashram a most wonderful, most sustainable eco-village. Have more of these. There can't be a place better than this. Self-sustained, nature-friendly, where you know the fibers you're wearing, where you know where the food comes from, how fresh it is. So it's so important to talk about this and have more of this. And like different parts of the world, as where some people are getting far more evolved, they're going back to village economy. We, on the other hand, are getting into this blatant, crazy consumerism, where it's never enough to have another car, to have a few more branded clothes, to buy more perfumes, to have a yet bigger house, and we don't even care about the food that we eat. How fresh is it? This green patch movement in UK, there is back to villages and organic farming all over the developed world. Can we not learn some from there and also go back to our own country, to our own culture, where reusing, reapplying, recycling is so much a part of our own DNA? So somewhere we are lost. And I think all of us as citizens, as eco-feminists, as wonderful meditators, must work towards seizing this India, this world, this Mother Earth. And talking about Mother Earth, it's very important that we have this discussion here. You know, I did this film with Dr. Vandana Shiva, if you remember, Monocultures of Mind, and we met Pupul Jayakar, one of the prominent eco-feminists. You know, the agricultural economies have feminine energies. It's a Janani, it's a creator. It gives, it shares. Whereas when you look at industrial economies, they're masculine in nature. But of course, in all of us, like a yin and yang, like a male anima and animus, like a male archetype and female archetype, we have to be whole and complete. It is that balance that we must seek. It is in invoking goddess Demeter, who stood for this, the old goddess of Mesopotamia, who stood for soil and fertility and creativity. And in invoking a goddess like that, that we have to redefine our path from here. And yes, we play a role gently as mothers, as teachers, as fathers, as meditators, as doctors, as students. But an additional role we must all take is that of having social intervention, political intervention, coming together, being informed, and again addressing these issues in public forum. I think that is extremely important. Also, my last point, you can't bribe nature. There is, as Mahatma Gandhi said, nature provides us everything according to our need, but never according to our greed. So we have to go beyond that. Jai Hind.